Welcome to our deep dive into the fascinating world of Muse cells. Today we're exploring a review article from Stem Cells Translational Medicine, published in April 2024, and we're going to try to figure out why these cells are generating so much buzz in the field of regenerative medicine.
Yeah, they're really interesting.
So what exactly are Muse cells and why are scientists so excited about them?
Well, Muse cells are this rare subpopulation of mesenchymal stem cells, or as they're more commonly called, MSCs.
Sure.
And the really remarkable thing about them is their consistent ability to locate and target sites of damage in all sorts of different tissues. They make up a tiny but really potent fraction of MSCs, only about 1% of the total population.
Oh, wow. So they're like specialized units within the broader MSC workforce.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. They actually have this kind of dual identity. So they're pluripotent-like, meaning they can morph into a whole bunch of different cell types.
Right.
But they also have these macrophage-like qualities, which means they can sense and gobble up damaged cells.
That's fascinating. It sounds like they have this built-in repair mechanism, almost like a cleanup crew and a rebuilding team all rolled into one.
Exactly.
What makes them different from regular MSCs then?
Well, regular MSCs, while they can be helpful, they often get trapped in the lungs after they're injected.
Okay.
And for the most part, they rely on secreting all these beneficial molecules rather than directly repairing the damaged tissue themselves.
Got it.
But Muse cells, on the other hand, well, they have this special receptor that acts like a GPS, basically guiding them straight to the site of the injury and bypassing that lung trap completely.
Wow, so they're more like a precision strike team than a general support unit.
Precisely.
That targeted approach is really impressive. Now, does this have something to do with their immune tolerance?
Yes, definitely. And this is where things get particularly interesting. Muse cells express this molecule called HLA-G, which is kind of like an invisibility cloak. It lets them slip past the defenses of your immune system. And what this means is that they could potentially be used from donors without the need for matching or all those immunosuppressant drugs.
Oh, that's a huge breakthrough in cell therapy.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It makes these therapies much more accessible and potentially much safer as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious about how researchers are actually putting these Muse cells to the test in, real-world applications.
Right.
What are some of the things that they're looking at?
Well, researchers are exploring Muse cell therapy for a whole range of conditions.
Great.
One promising area is treating acute myocardial infarction, or, what we commonly call a heart attack.
Right.
In preclinical models, they've shown that Muse cells injected intravenously can actually home in on the heart, differentiate into cardiac cells, and ultimately improve heart function.
So they're not just patching up the damage, they're actually regenerating heart tissue.
Exactly.
That's remarkable. Now, are there any human trials to support this?
There is a first-in-human trial that's been done, although it was pretty small, only 3 patients. They all suffered from STEMI and had reduced heart function. Right. And they received donor Muse cells, and the results were really encouraging. They all saw improvements in their heart function, and there weren't any rejection issues.
That's incredibly promising, especially considering how widespread heart disease is.
Yeah.
Are there any other areas where Muse cells are showing promise?
Absolutely. Another fascinating area is epidermolysis bullosa, or ED for short.
Okay.
It's a genetic skin disease that results in an incredibly fragile skin.
Right.
And Muse cells have actually been tested in a mouse model that mimics EB, and the results were really encouraging.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
What exactly happened in that model?
So they injected the Muse cells intravenously, and those cells they homed right to the skin, differentiated into various skin cells, and amazingly, they even started producing type 7 collagen. That's a protein that is crucial for skin integrity.
Oh, wow.
It was missing in these mice.
So it sounds like they addressed the root of the problem, not just the symptom.
Yeah, exactly.
Have they started human trials for this as well?
They have. There's a phase 3 trial going on right now with 5 adult DEB patients who have these really stubborn ulcers.
Okay.
It's still in the early stages. But some of those patients have seen really significant improvement. Their ulcers have shrunk, they're experiencing less pain, and even their liver enzyme levels have improved.
Wow.
This suggests that Muse cells might not just be treating the skin, but also addressing the systemic effects of the disease.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears to ischemic stroke, a condition where time is absolutely of the essence. How are Muse cells being studied in this context?
Well, you're right. When it comes to stroke, Every minute counts.
Yeah.
And the current treatments have limited effectiveness, especially if you miss that critical early window.
Right.
The amazing thing about Muse cells, though, is that they can be administered even in the subacute phase, weeks after the stroke has happened.
Wow, so that really expands the treatment window considerably.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
What have the studies shown so far?
So, in rodent models, they found that Muse cells injected into the brain actually integrated, seamlessly differentiated into neurons and formed new connections. And what they saw was a significant improvement in motor and sensory function.
It's incredible. It's like they're rewiring the damaged brain even weeks after the injury has happened.
It really is remarkable.
This has got to be one of the most exciting areas of Muse cell research.
It's definitely up there.
And we actually have human trials to back up these findings too, right?
Yeah, we do. There was a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial
Okay.
where they took stroke patients who had received donor Muse cells weeks after their stroke and compared them to a placebo group. And those who got the Muse cells, they showed these remarkable improvements in motor function. And these improvements were sustained for at least a year.
That's amazing. They're really offering hope to patients who may have thought their chance of recovery had passed.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. And there was this other really interesting observation from this trial. Some of the patients actually saw their gray hair returning to its original color.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was totally unexpected.
It's like a bonus feature on top of all the other amazing benefits.
Yeah, it's wild. We're still trying to understand how that happened, but it really speaks to just how profound the effects of Muse cells can be.
That's fascinating. Okay, so speaking of remarkable potential, how are Muse cells being studied for ALS?
Right. So ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis,
Right.
it's a really debilitating neurodegenerative disease that affects motor neurons, which are the nerve cells that control muscle movement.
Right.
And right now, there are very limited treatment options.
It's a tough one.
It really is.
So how are Muse cells being utilized to try and tackle this challenge?
Well, the biggest challenge with ALS is that it primarily affects motor neurons in the spinal cord and the brain. And it's really hard to deliver therapies to those areas.
Right.
But Muse cells, well, they seem to have this natural affinity for the nervous system.
Cool.
Studies have shown that they can actually migrate to the spinal cord and brain and zero in on those damaged motor neurons.
So they're not just waiting to be delivered, they're actively seeking out the areas in need.
Yeah, exactly.
What
right.
happens once they get there?
Well, they can differentiate into various types of neural cells, including motor neurons themselves, but they also go a step further and secrete factors that actually protect the existing motor neurons from further damage.
So it's like they're providing both reinforcement and repair at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Are there studies showing that this actually benefits patients with ALS?
There are. There have been some really promising results from studies using the SOD WinG93A mouse model, which is a model that mimics human ALS.
Okay.
And in these studies, Muse cell treatment actually slowed the disease progression, improved motor function, and even increased the lifespan of these mice.
That's really a beacon of hope for a disease that currently has no cure. Now, what about human trials? Are there any underway?
Yes, there's an early-stage trial going on right now with 5 ALS patients,
Okay.
and they're receiving monthly injections of donor Muse cells for a period of 6 months.
Okay.
So far, no serious side effects have been reported, and 4 out of the 5 patients have actually shown a halt in disease progression.
That's remarkable. It's still very early days, but these findings suggest a real possibility of at least slowing down, if not completely halting, the progression of this devastating disease.
Yeah, it's definitely a reason to be optimistic.
It seems like Muse cells are breaking new ground in a whole range of conditions. What does all of this tell us about the future of Muse cell research?
Well, I think it's safe to say that Muse cells represent a potential paradigm shift in regenerative medicine. You know, their ability to directly replace damaged cells rather than just providing a supportive environment that's really groundbreaking.
Yep.
And then their apparent immune tolerance that could revolutionize cell therapies, making them more accessible and much safer.
They're essentially rewriting the rules of tissue repair and regeneration.
It's really exciting stuff.
What's next for Muse cell research? Where do we go from here?
Well, ongoing research is definitely critical to really understanding exactly how Muse cells work and to optimizing their therapeutic use.
Right.
We need to figure out the best ways to deliver them, the ideal dosage, and the best timing for different conditions.
It's a rapidly evolving field with so much potential. I'm curious, though, what other diseases do you think could potentially benefit from Muse cell therapy in the future?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, given their really unique properties, Muse cells hold a lot of promise for a wide range of conditions.
Okay.
We could be looking at everything from neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's to autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis.
Wow.
They could even play a role in repairing damaged organs like the liver and kidneys.
It sounds like we're just beginning to explore the potential of Muse cells. It's a really exciting area of research and has the potential to completely transform medicine as we know it.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating field. And speaking of rewriting the rules, Muse cells are also showing a lot of promise in treating a disease that's long been considered a race against time: stroke.
That's right. We talked about this a little bit earlier. What exactly makes Muse cell therapy so unique in the context of stroke?
Well, the current standard of care for stroke, it's all about immediate intervention, right?
Yeah.
But what if we could actually extend that window of opportunity? That's what Muse cells offer. They've actually been shown to be effective even when they're given weeks after a stroke during what we call the subacute phase.
Wow, that could be a real lifeline for patients who might have missed that initial critical treatment window. How does this actually work in practice?
Well, it goes back to their incredible homing ability. They just seem to have this knack for finding those damaged areas in the brain and, getting to work. And I'm not just talking about providing support. Muse cells actually integrate into the brain tissue. They become a part of that intricate neural circuitry.
So they're not just patching up the damage, they're actually rewiring the brain.
Exactly.
That's so cool. What kind of impact does this have on patients?
Well, studies have shown significant improvements in things like motor function, sensory function, and even cognitive abilities in stroke patients who have been treated with Muse cells. And these improvements were seen even in patients who received the treatment weeks or even months after their initial stroke.
That is incredibly encouraging. It suggests that Muse cells could completely change how we approach stroke treatment and rehabilitation.
Absolutely. It opens up a whole new chapter in stroke research. And building on that idea of, targeted repair, Muse cells are also showing a lot of promise in treating another critical condition: acute myocardial infarction, or a heart attack, as most people know it.
Right. Heart attacks are unfortunately a pretty common problem and a very serious one. What makes Muse cells a potential game changer in this field?
Well, Muse cells have this natural affinity for heart tissue.
Okay.
So when you inject them into the bloodstream, they tend to gravitate towards those damaged areas of the heart, much like they do with the brain.
It's like they have this innate sense of where they're needed most. What do they do once they actually reach the damaged heart tissue?
Well, they can differentiate into cardiomyocytes, which are the cells that are responsible for the heart's contractions.
Okay.
And they go even further than that. They also promote the formation of new blood vessels, which basically enhances blood flow to those injured areas.
So they're not just replacing damaged cells, they're literally helping to rebuild the heart's infrastructure.
That's for.
Have the results lived up to the hype?
They really have. Studies have shown some really remarkable outcomes, like significant improvements in heart function, a reduction in scar tissue, and even an increase in the heart's pumping ability.
It's like they're giving the heart a second lease on life.
It is pretty amazing.
Is this similar to what we've seen with other cell-based therapies?
Well, one key difference here is that Muse cell treatment doesn't require the use of immunosuppressant drugs.
Right.
And that's a huge advantage over some of those more traditional cell therapies.
Right, because it eliminates a lot of those potential risks and complications for patients.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about a condition that impacts a totally different part of the body. Epidermolysis bullosa, or EB.
Right.
This is a devastating genetic skin disorder that makes the skin incredibly fragile. How are Muse cells being investigated as a potential treatment for this?
EB is a really heartbreaking condition. The skin is so fragile it blisters and tears from even the slightest touch.
It's awful.
And to treat it, you need cells that can not only become skin cells, but they also have to carry healthy genes to replace those faulty ones.
Yeah, that's a tall order for any therapy.
Right.
How do Muse cells measure up?
Well, Muse cells have shown some really remarkable abilities in this area. In studies using the Col17KO mouse model, which mimics EB Muse cells injected intravenously, actually homed to the skin, differentiated into various skin cells, and even started producing type C collagen.
So they're basically rebuilding the skin from the inside out, addressing the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Have they tested this in humans?
They have. There's actually a phase 3 clinical trial going on right now with 5 adult DEB patients with these really persistent persistent ulcers.
Got it.
And it's still early days, but they're seeing some pretty significant improvements in some cases, like a reduction in the size of the ulcers, decreased pain, and even some improvements in liver enzyme levels.
Wow.
So that suggests that the Muse cells might not be just treating the skin, but also addressing some of those systemic effects of the disease.
That is remarkable. This seems to be like a recurring theme with Muse cell therapy. Their ability to, address a wide range of conditions across all these different tissues.
That's a great observation. And before we move on to some of those other applications, I do want to highlight one particularly exciting aspect of Muse cell research. This remarkable ability they have to basically evade the immune system.
Right. We touched on this a little earlier, but it is worth reiterating. It's a real game changer in the world of cell therapies. How does this immune evasion actually work?
Well, we're still unraveling all the precise mechanisms, but we do know that Muse cells express molecules like HLA-G, which effectively act as shields, preventing the immune system from recognizing them as foreign invaders.
So they're not just blending in, they're actively disarming the body's defenses.
That's a good way to put it.
What are the implications of this for cell therapy in general?
Well, this immune privilege, as we call it, could completely revolutionize the field. It means that we could potentially use Muse cells from donors without the need for that strict HLA matching, which is a major hurdle right now in a lot of cell transplant procedures.
Right.
So it could open up the possibility of having off-the-shelf Muse cell therapies that are readily available for anyone who needs them.
That is a remarkable prospect.
It is. Imagine a future where we have these readily available cell therapies that can target all sorts of diseases without having to worry about immune rejection.
That is definitely a future worth striving for.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's switch gears now and talk about another devastating condition, ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. This disease affects motor neurons, the cells that are responsible for muscle movement, and currently there are very limited treatment options available. What role might Muse cells play in this really challenging area?
Well, ALS is a complex disease, and it primarily affects motor neurons that are located in the spinal cord and the brain.
Right.
And just delivering effective therapies to these areas is a major challenge.
It's a tough target to reach.
It really is.
Yeah.
But Muse cells, well, they seem to have a natural affinity for the nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
And studies have shown that they can actually migrate to the spinal cord and brain and seek out those damaged motor neurons.
So they're not just passively waiting to be delivered, they're actively seeking out those areas of need.
Exactly.
So what happens once they reach the affected areas?
Well, they can do a couple of things. They can differentiate into various types of neural cells, including motor neurons themselves.
Okay.
But they can also secrete factors that actually protect the existing motor neurons from further damage.
So it's like a two-pronged approach. They're providing both reinforcement and repair.
Exactly.
Are there any studies that show that this approach actually benefits patients with ALS?
There are. There are some really promising results from studies using the SOD1 G93A mouse model, which mimics human ALS. And what they found was that Muse cell treatment actually slowed the disease progression, it improved motor function, and it even increased the lifespan of the mice.
That's really encouraging, especially for a disease that currently has no cure. Now, what about human trials? Are there any underway?
Yes, there is an early-stage clinical trial going on right now.
Okay.
And it involves 5 ALS patients who have been receiving monthly injections of donor Muse cells for 6 months.
Got it.
And so far, the results have been really encouraging. 4 out of the 5 patients have actually shown a halt in disease progression.
That's remarkable. It's still early days, but these findings suggest a real possibility of at least slowing down, if not halting, the progression of this devastating disease.
Yeah, it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah. It seems like Muse cells are really breaking new ground in a wide range of conditions. What other areas are researchers particularly excited about?
Well, another area where Muse cells are showing a lot of potential is in treating spinal cord injuries.
Right. Spinal cord injuries are incredibly debilitating. They often lead to permanent paralysis and loss of sensation. How are Muse cells being used to address this incredibly complex challenge?
Well, repairing a damaged spinal cord is an incredibly intricate process, but Muse cells, they seem to have this unique ability to promote regeneration of nerve fibers.
Ooh.
You can think of them like these tiny little electricians rewiring the communication pathways of the nervous system.
So they're not just patching things up, they're actually rebuilding those connections within the spinal cord.
That's right.
That's remarkable. What kind of impact does this have on patients?
Well, in animal models of spinal cord injury, Muse cell transplantation has actually led to significant improvements in motor function, sensory function, and even bladder control.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like they're restoring functionality that was once thought to be permanently lost.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What about human trials? Are there any plans to test this approach in people?
The research is still in its preclinical stages, but the early findings are really encouraging. If these results continue to hold up, Muse cells could very well become a standard treatment for helping people regain function after a spinal cord injury.
It's an incredible prospect.
It is.
The range of applications for Muse cell therapy just seems to be constantly expanding.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Let's dive into another area where they're making some waves. Liver disease.
Right, so liver disease is a huge global health problem.
Yeah.
The liver is so crucial for so many bodily functions. And what's so promising about Muse cells is that they seem to have this real affinity for liver tissue.
Okay.
When you inject them into the bloodstream, they often migrate to the liver, particularly to areas that have been damaged.
So they exhibit that same targeted approach, going straight to where they're needed most. What role do they actually play in repairing the liver?
Well, they can differentiate into hepatocytes, which are the main cells that make up the liver.
Right.
And they also secrete factors that protect the existing liver cells from damage.
Okay.
So this means that they could potentially both replace those damaged cells and help to regenerate the remaining healthy tissue.
It's like this two-pronged approach to healing.
Yeah.
What kind of outcomes have researchers seen in studies where they've used Muse cells to treat liver disease?
Studies have shown that Muse cell treatment can actually improve liver function, reduce inflammation, and even prevent the progression of liver fibrosis, which is that scarring process that can eventually lead to cirrhosis.
So they're not just repairing the damage, they're preventing further deterioration.
That's right.
That could be a game changer for millions of people living with liver disease. Have they tested this approach in humans?
They have, and there have been some encouraging early-stage clinical trials. In one study, patients with cirrhosis received an infusion of Muse cells, and a lot of them experienced improvements in their liver function and a decrease in the severity of their symptoms.
That's really promising.
Yeah.
It is. It seems like every time we delve into a new application for Muse cells, we uncover yet another layer of their remarkable potential.
It's true.
Now, what about kidney disease? Are there any ongoing studies exploring Muse cells for treating kidney issues?
Yes, absolutely. Kidney disease is another area where Muse cells are showing a lot of promise.
Okay.
You know, the kidneys are so vital for filtering waste products from the blood,
Right.
and kidney failure often requires dialysis or even a transplant.
Yeah.
What's so intriguing about Muse cells is their ability to differentiate into kidney cells, including these specialized cells called podocytes that play a really critical role in filtering the blood.
So they have the potential to actually restore the kidney's filtering capacity, which is essential for maintaining overall health.
That's right.
What have the studies shown so far?
Well, in animal models of kidney disease, Muse cell injections have actually been shown to improve kidney function,
Okay.
reduce inflammation, and even prevent the progression of fibrosis, which is one of the main drivers of kidney disease.
So it sounds like they're addressing the root causes of kidney disease rather than just managing the symptoms.
Exactly.
That's incredible. Have they tested this approach in humans yet?
There have been some small-scale early-stage trials, and the results have been pretty encouraging.
Okay.
Some patients have experienced improvements in their kidney function and a decrease in markers of kidney damage.
That's promising.
Yeah.
It seems like the list of potential applications for Muse cells is growing all the time.
It really is.
What about lung diseases? Are there any studies exploring their use in this area?
Absolutely. Lung diseases like COPD, pulmonary fibrosis, and ARDS, they affect millions of people around the world.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Muse cells in this context is that they can actually differentiate into various types of lung cells, including the cells that line the tiny air sacs where gas exchange takes place.
So they could potentially repair the damaged lung tissue and help it function properly again. What have researchers observed in studies using Muse cells for lung diseases?
Well, studies have shown that Muse cell treatment can improve lung function, reduce inflammation, and even prevent the progression of fibrosis in the lungs, much like what we've seen in other organs.
So this anti-fibrotic effect seems to be like a common thread across many of the Muse cell studies,
Yeah.
suggesting that they're not just repairing the damage, but they're also preventing further deterioration.
That's a really key observation. And as you mentioned, this effect has been observed in a whole range of organs, everything from the heart and the liver to the kidneys and the lungs.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the versatility and the regenerative power of these incredible cells.
This is truly groundbreaking research. It seems like Muse cells are opening up all these new possibilities for treating a wide range of diseases that were once considered incurable.
It's mind-blowing when you think about the scope of their potential, and it sounds like we're just getting started with the research.
Yeah, what other areas are being explored?
Researchers are even looking into the potential of Muse cells for treating eye diseases. Things like macular degeneration retinitis, pigmentosa glaucoma. These conditions can lead to really significant vision loss.
Those are incredibly challenging conditions to treat. How are Muse cells being utilized in this context?
Well, the eye is a complex organ, but Muse cells, they seem to have this remarkable ability to differentiate into a whole variety of eye cells that are essential for vision.
Okay.
We're talking about retinal pigment, epithelial cells, photoreceptor cells, ganglion cells.
So they can potentially replace damaged cells across different parts of the eye, addressing various causes of vision loss.
Right.
What have the studies shown so far?
Well, the preclinical studies are showing really promising results. When they inject Muse cells into the eyes of animal models with eye diseases, they actually migrate to those damaged areas, they differentiate into the necessary eye cells, and they're even seeing improvements in vision.
That's incredible. Imagine being able to restore vision that was once lost. Are there any human trials in the works?
Yes, there have actually been some early-stage clinical trials involving patients with macular degeneration, and some of these patients have experienced improvements in their vision after they received injections of Muse cells.
That's a real beacon of hope for millions of people who are facing vision loss. It seems like Muse cells are really pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible in regenerative medicine. Are there any other areas you want to highlight?
Another area where Muse cells hold a lot of promise is in treating autoimmune diseases. So think rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis. These conditions involve the immune system mistakenly attacking the body's own tissues.
Yeah, these diseases can be so debilitating for people. How might Muse cells offer a solution?
Muse cells, they exhibit what we call immunomodulatory properties. That means they can regulate the immune system, they can calm down those overactive immune responses that are really a hallmark of autoimmune diseases.
So they're basically acting as peacemakers within the immune system.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
What evidence is there to support this idea?
Well, studies in animal models of autoimmune diseases have shown that Muse cells can reduce inflammation, they can suppress the activity of those harmful immune cells, and they can even promote the regeneration of damaged tissues.
That's really impressive. It suggests that they could be a really valuable tool for managing autoimmune diseases without having to rely solely on those immunosuppressant drugs that often come with a lot of unwanted side effects.
Exactly.
Are there any human trials exploring this application yet?
There have been some early-stage trials.
Okay.
For instance, patients with rheumatoid arthritis who received Muse cell injections directly into their affected joints, they experienced reductions in pain, swelling, and stiffness.
That's remarkable. It seems like Muse cells could potentially offer a more targeted and less invasive approach to managing these really chronic and often painful conditions. Are there any other applications we haven't talked about?
I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, but there is still so much to explore with Muse cells. Researchers are also investigating their potential in treating metabolic disorders like obesity and type 2 diabetes.
Right. Metabolic disorders are a huge and growing global health concern. How might Muse cells actually fit into this landscape?
Well, it's interesting because Muse cells, they seem to have this ability to regulate metabolism and improve insulin sensitivity, which is a key factor in both obesity and type 2 diabetes.
So they could potentially help the body process glucose more efficiently and really address a core issue in these conditions.
Right.
What have studies shown so far?
Well, in animal models of obesity and type 2 diabetes, they've found that Muse cells can actually reduce weight gain, improve glucose tolerance, and even protect against the development of some of those metabolic complications.
That's encouraging. It suggests that they could be a valuable new tool for managing these really complex metabolic disorders that are so difficult to treat. Are there any human trials underway in this area?
Yes, there are some early-stage trials that are looking at the effects of Muse cell infusions in patients with type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
And some individuals have actually shown improvements in their glucose control.
That's promising. It seems like Muse cells are really challenging those conventional approaches to treating such a wide range of conditions. Are there any other areas you'd like to highlight before we wrap up?
We could honestly go on and on. Researchers are exploring Muse cell therapy for blood disorders, muscle disorders, bone disorders, cartilage disorders, dental and oral health issues, and even things like cosmetic and aesthetic concerns.
Wow. It's really incredible to consider the sheer breadth of their potential. They really do seem to hold so much promise for addressing so many health challenges that people face. What does this mean for the future of medicine as a whole?
Well, I think it's safe to say that it's a really exciting time to be involved in this research. We're witnessing a true paradigm shift in regenerative medicine. And Muse cells are leading the way. They're offering new hope for treating a huge array of diseases and conditions that we once thought were incurable.
It's like a whole new frontier in medicine is opening up right before our eyes.
It really is.
What's next for Muse cell research? Where do we go from here?
Well, we're just getting started. Ongoing research is really crucial for fully understanding exactly how Muse cells work and for refining those therapeutic applications. We need to optimize things like delivery methods, dosage timing, all those things for different conditions.
It's a rapidly evolving field with just immense potential. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Yeah, I would just say keep an eye on Muse cell research. These remarkable cells, they may hold the key to a healthier and brighter future for all of us.
That's a really inspiring message. This has been a truly fascinating deep dive into the world of Muse cells. Thanks for joining us today.
It was my pleasure. Until next time, stay curious.